But November is the moment when Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter all come back together again. Though some people might hear that and say, I'm afraid, I'm offering it in the spirit of don't be. Sign up for the change and transformation that you already signed up for.
Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted to know what in the world's going on with the world, according to the stars, then do we have the show for you. Today I'll be talking with Dr. Michael Lennox, psychologist, dream expert, astrologer, and the creator of the Daily Astro Alert. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about what's going on this summer, this fall, December 21st, this weekend, oh boy, and why the chaos of today was all written in the stars. That, plus we'll talk about solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, Mercury and Venus in retrograde together, holding onto your hats, and what in the world an eclipse wormhole has to do with anything. So welcome back to the show, Michael. Are you ready to shine?
I am. It's always great to be here, Michael. Pleasure.
Always great to have you. So before we dive right into things, Michael, are we doomed?
It depends on who you ask. I don't think we're doomed, but I don't anticipate, challenges with great change and transformation, right?
Yeah.
So the answer to your question is it depends on how much you fear change. If you fear change greatly, we're doomed because everything is changing.
And it's interesting, Jessica, my wife and myself, we're going through a very challenging, change-filled time in our lives. And I actually look at it, not that I celebrate it, but I can see as difficult as it is, as much as my belly is flip-flopping through this, that is going to require great change that is certainly going to be for our best interest in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly what I believe about all change and transformation. And as an astrologer, none of what's happening is that much of a surprise to me because all of us astrologers have been looking at 2020 being this crazy transformative year long before it actually arrived. And so here it is, and it is delivering on every promise. You remember the phrase I used with you in December was like we've never seen before on the planet.
Yes, and we came up with the term together, the year of reckoning.
Yes. And here we are. In fact, we're smack dab halfway in the middle, June, middle of the year.
So let's talk about that. But before we talk about specific events, we were talking about the alignment of planets and the stars having to do with the U.S. And I am watching so much stuff like Confederate statues being ripped down. Everything that was under the carpet is coming back up. What's going on, Michael?
Specifically, speaking to the United States, there's a chart you would cast for the United States, and you would read it just like a birth chart, right? Only it's instead of August 23rd, 1963, it's July 4th, 1776, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And in that chart, the planet Pluto was at 27 degrees of Capricorn, right? That's not that interesting for 1776, but it's very interesting for now because Pluto, in his long orbit, is back where he was when the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776. That exact return is happening, I think, in 2022, 2023. Mm-hmm. So we are in what's called the Pluto Return for the chart of the United States. A return means that the planet in question's consciousness is just up. You know this as your solar return. Mm-hmm. That moment every year you think about your sense of self, where you are in your life. It's called your birthday. But the astrological corollary is the sun consciousness, I am, is in sort of rising up at the return moment. Yeah. Pluto's meaning is about the shadow, the hidden, the underbelly. He is, after all, the Lord of the underworld. So if there's some darkness or secret or disowned material or things we want to shove into the basement, Pluto invented that. So what was the powerful trope on which this country was established and formed? All men are created equal.
Theoretically, in the
this.
I mean, we both agree with it, but in the document, it was highly theoretical.
Well, certainly because of colonization and the decimation of the First Nations people for
Yes.
whom this country was really their land, and we destroyed them, then that's not all men are created equal. And then the entire country is built on the backs of slaves, human bondage, while we're deciding that the watchwords are all men are created equal. They are not, and that's a shadow. That's a hidden shame that this country took on at its inception. And now Pluto is returning, and it's all coming to roost. My colleague, Monique Ruffin, and I, who is a Black woman astrologer, she used to actually be a student of mine. She is now full-on colleague. I love Monique. And we started talking about race in America through the lens of astrology in 2019 because of this Pluto return. So from the astrological perspective, I knew that race in America was going to accelerate into some reckoning. In the year of reckoning, as you have beautifully dubbed it, it's interesting to me that part of the reckoning for the United States is that there's no more possibility of pretending that we aren't in the crisis that we are in due to the racial challenge.
Thank you. So let's go from there. I'm viewing this year, and I throw the term COVID, but it's written in the stars, and we'll get there. But I talk about this year as being COVID is an amplifier. Well, the amplifier is really in the stars. So I'm wondering, we've got a solar eclipse happening pretty much as we speak. What in the world is going on? People will catch this on the other side of it. Hopefully there is something to catch on the other side of it. But what's going on right now, and how is that an amplifier?
So on the one hand, it's just another new moon to set intentions. We set intentions with every new moon. That's what the stars are doing. The sun and the moon come together, grabbing all the gravity in one direction. We plant seeds in response to that gravity being pulled in one direction. And it's the same for seeds of mind and seeds of ideas, seeds of our heart's desire. An eclipse is what makes it transformative, that there's something powerful about the geometrical shape of our solar system. Mm-hmm. This might actually be why life was created in the first place. This idea that from our perspective on the earth, the moon and the sun are perfectly placed such that the moon is exactly 400 times smaller than the sun. Not 399, not 401, but 400 times bigger, smaller, depending on which perspective you use to describe it. And that's what causes the light beam to break every 6 months like clockwork. And so our movement forward through life from the past into the future is in some fundamental way generated by this eclipse energy of every 6 months. There's this, like, we turn the computer off and then we turn it on again. So that becomes the thing that makes a new moon solar eclipse intention setting moment bigger, because we are also resetting the system while we do it. So you could say that intentions you set in a new moon solar eclipse are way more important, profound, and powerful because they have this like 19-year cycle that they generate. That's what the eclipse does, is it creates these overlapping 19-year cycles. In the old days, when the news, today we have a 24-hour news sort of, a cycle. But back in the day when astrologers were, dudes with hats sitting over books in castles, the news cycle was like 6 months long, right? So an eclipse might portend an event that's dastardly. So we have this omen thing about eclipses. I don't think that's modern. I think that idea, here's what it is. Bad shit happens all the time. So it's not like an eclipse portends bad stuff. Difficulty happens. Eclipses happen. What they really are is an opportunity to upgrade our consciousness. And so that's the really big important thing about this crazy moment of eclipse and new moon and solar and all 2 planets retrograde, is that everything out there is changing. And if we don't change as individuals along with it, we won't keep up.
That's fascinating to me because we're speaking a couple days before Tulsa. This will come out after Tulsa's taken place. We don't know what's going to take place. But really what strikes me is no matter what side of whatever fence you're on, it's either tied to bend and shift or you break through this experience.
Yes. And so, yes, we're recording this before the eclipse. This won't sort of reach people until after the weekend, right? So it is interesting that in the United States, there is this actual moment happening in Tulsa tomorrow where two sides of a very divisive issue are likely to gather in a moment when the planets are certainly saying this is highly charged. And so people are going to rush out to that event and bring that highly charged energy with them. We are going to watch this highly charged event with our perspectives in tow. And it doesn't matter which side of the political spectrum you're on. There's no truth that's right on one side and wrong on the other. It's a fundamental moment where difference and polarity is meeting in a kind of a hotbed at the moment of this eclipse new moon thing. So might that generate an enormous kerfuffle in Tulsa that we might be cleaning up for a while? Well, we'll find out. We'll find out as the weekend unfolds.
Stay tuned. And because you mentioned two planets in retrograde simultaneously, what do Mercury and Venus have to do with this whole kerfuffle?
You know, the personal planets, so when we're talking about Mercury, Venus, and Mars, and the sun and the moon, but Mercury, Venus, and Mars, they represent or reflect our physical, mental, and emotional experience as individuals. In other words, Mars is your body, Mercury is your mind and your voice, Venus is your heart. So that means if Mercury is going retrograde, everyone on the planet is having an experience where their thinking mechanism, how they think, how they communicate and process, is going sort of into the unconscious a little bit because backward movement in the sky, the appearance of backward movement, we interpret as meaning a little visit to the unconscious. And when we go into the unconscious, we can change things to match the outer changes that are happening in the world. What's crazy about 2020 is that the outer planets and the social planets are creating this enormous amount of change and transformation that all you have to do is turn on your social media feed to see what I'm talking about. All three personal planets are going retrograde in the calendar year of 2020, and that is wildly rare. The fact that Venus and Mercury are doing it at the same time, and for the next week, both of them are retrograde while we're having this eclipse, that's kind of like opening the door to our unconscious for both our hearts and our minds. So now how we think is in the unconscious, doing oh my God, I've got to change everything about how I perceive the world. And our feeling mechanism, our hearts are in the unconscious, asking us to go in and see how we really deserve or undeserve or feel about life and all the changes that are happening. And then Mars is going to go retrograde in the fall. In fact, in 7 days, he moves into Aries, the sign of his rulership, and he'll stay there for like months and months and months and months because he's going to go retrograde there. So the point I'm making is that we need personal planet retrogrades to shift and change on the personal level. The fact that all three are going retrograde within a short period of time in a rare confluence of retrogrades means we are all individually being supported in all the changes outside also happening on the inside.
Does it also mean, Michael, because I think of Mercury going retrograde isn't a time to go hide under the bed, but it is certainly a time to draw inward and move more slowly.
The only thing I'll object to is the idea that it's not time to just get into bed, because maybe that's what the solution is. No, you're absolutely right, Michael, that when we move too fast, our first impulse to choose, to react, to do, to speak is often directly unconscious. It's like I see the post on Facebook, I'm triggered by it, and then I type and hit click before I've even known what's going on.
Yeah.
I personally don't do this, but that's what people do, right? So if you are slow and mindful about the behaviors you enact, now it's a whole different story. Now it's, ooh, I'm triggered by this post. Oh my God, I'm going to type. No, I'm not. I'm not going to type that. I'm going to be in my feeling experience. I'm going to be in the trigger. And then whatever you get out of that experience of slowing down your reaction mechanism, it's going to make you uncomfortable because feelings will be there and the feelings will make you want to act. But that's old unconscious impulses taking over. Slowly, mindfully says things are changing in my unconscious. And if I allow them to bubble up a little bit, those impulses that are new, then I'm going to have a more integrated experience in the long run. Although to do so means I'm uncomfortable while Venus is retrograde. Then when Mercury goes retrograde alongside of it, I'm really uncomfortable. And she'll turn around in a week and go direct, but Mercury will still be retrograde for a few weeks. And then a couple of months later, we do it with the body and Mars. So yeah, if you don't move slow, how can you make a new choice? How can you find a new impulse if you don't allow for them to show them to you?
It's fascinating because if I look at humanity, I'm looking at humanity as having the dredge in the subconscious right now. It's coming up if we look at us as a human beingness, as a oneness. And there is this energy there is this tsunami of energy of speed right now. It has been lightning fast. It's so that when we spoke in December, that's like centuries ago, and we spoke at the beginning of COVID, and that was decades ago.
That feels like a century ago.
It totally does.
Well, you bring up beautiful language, which reflects how I work as an astrologer. Like I'm writing every day the daily Astro Alert that is not about how the transits impact individuals. It's how the transits are impacting the Earth herself, as if she were one organism, which she is, which we are all part of.
And I've got to say, I can't believe this was my first daily Astro Alert that I read before this. It's freaking brilliant, Michael. Oh. I had no idea. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. There is so much more detail than we could possibly cover in an interview. And that's daily. I don't get it. You do that daily, but that was a sliver. With that said, before we dive into Mars, because that's going to be interesting, I want to understand that. Is there anything big happening in a few days after this, around the 25th? Because I've heard that this is kind of an amplifier building up, even if we make it through the weekend, which I'm assuming we will.
Yeah, there is 3 pillars in the year that are the most intense. Astrologically, were generated by the meeting up of Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter in January. Saturn goes on and he's sort of out of the picture. But in terms of understanding Pluto and Jupiter together, Pluto is the death portion and Jupiter is the make it big and make it global.
Oh, we Jupiter got it, Michael.
Global travel. The one, that's his bailiwick. So Pluto raised his hand and says, I'm going to destroy everything. And Jupiter was like, great, I'm going all over the world this year. I'll help. So Pluto and Jupiter met up in January, and that was when the virus was expanding. They were emerging up out of China. Australia was on fire. The impeachments were here. There was a Brexit big challenge in January. So you can think of that moment of death and expansion together. The next moment that death and expansion are meeting up is at the end of this month, in about a week. Pluto and Jupiter come together, both now retrograde. So remember, I said retrograde is akin to the unconscious. So now we've got death, change, transformation, all sorts of things are up for being killed off to be reborn. But under the surface, an expansion, bounty, global movement, also under the surface. I don't know what we're going to see on the planet as a result, because of the retrograde posture implies that there's more behind the scenes, hidden or backwards or not visible. But you can certainly look at the news and the current sort of acceleration of current events and understand that we're in a moment that's crazy out there. We've got this wave from the solstice and the new moon eclipse that takes with it, like that wave rises up this weekend when we're talking right now. And just 4, 5, 6 days later, Pluto and Jupiter come along as a great undertow. What happens when you have a big wave and a big undertow is the whole system just gets even bigger. The top of the wave is higher, the under the toe is greater, and that's next week.
Oh, no problem at all. So I might as well just go from next week to tell me about Mars and war.
Well, okay. Now you're into scary territory or fear kind of territory.
And then we're going to go why we don't want to succumb to gloom and doom. So I'm going to curl the wave back around as I take us on this roller coaster ride.
Mars is the god of war, originally. And so one can track Mars's activity and movement and say, as Mars goes, so goes rage, anger, attack, and aggression. Here's a little non-doom and gloom. So as an astrologer, I don't at all relate to Mars as the planet who's the god of war, ever. I don't think about that. I don't write about that. I remember that that's true because, thousands of years ago, the Romans looked up and declared that to be so. I think of Mars as the body, physical body. Mm-hmm. Venus is the heart. Mercury is the mind. So these archetypes for me aren't about actions out there like war. They are about embodiment. Now, that said, when Mars is in Aries, his ruling sign, that cardinal, fiery, warlike, Mars-like, energy, our bodies are more likely to become enraged, aggressive, and assertive, and in that energized kind of capacity. So we've got Mars in a sign that is his rulership, where he's going to be most comfortable with anger, aggression, and explosivity. And that's an unknown quantity. Like, I can't speak as an astrologer as to what that's going to bring in this crazy year, because I've never lived through anything like this. But I love the idea as a sort of philosophizing, observer of life. I love the idea that when all of that change and transformation is happening, first our hearts say, oh, we've got to change. We've got to respond to this crazy amount of change and transformation. Let's turn within and do some work on our individual sense of where is love? How does it come and go and flow? How can I stay loving in the most unloving of circumstances? That's a powerful artifact of a Venus retrograde. Then Mercury joins the fray and says, oh, well, if the feeling mechanism is wiring up new, then the thinking mechanism has to join it. And then the Mars just sort of says, and I will do it last as the year is coming to a close, so that all of the changes that you made in your feeling mechanism and your thinking mechanism can be embodied into how you walk your talk. So I love the 3 personal planet retrograde.
I like that. And what I like the most about it is I think we're going heart, head, body. What we're doing is the heart is the driver, the heart has the path. The mind will then drive, and it will ask the body to take the action.
That's right. That's right. And to me, there's an elegance to that layering.
So let's dive into this for a minute. We have a lot of astrologists right now who are talking about, what's that REM song? It's the end of the world as we know it. You're not feeling that. I'm not feeling that, although there is this idea of hiding under the bed a little bit right now. What gives you optimism when you look at the charts?
Well, the optimism that I have definitely doesn't come from the chart.
Tell me more.
It comes from who I am. Like, I didn't say this last night, but I might as well have. I'm doing a global healing on Thursday nights that I started when the shelter in place came along. I was like, how can I serve? What can I do? Like, I can get together with people, so a couple of hundred people gather with me, either live or with the recording. And the feeling I had at the end, and I do wish I had said this, and Mercury had just turned around and I was off my game a little last night, but I had this thought of the world might fall apart between this Thursday and next Thursday, and I'll still be back here bringing hope because it's in my everything that we're here for this. We're here to change this. Like, this is the time for this change. I don't shrink back from any of it. And I don't really care what the form is, even if it gets dastardly, because the change has to come. And I feel very aligned with that process in a kind of, in a way that only hooey language fits. Like, I was incarnated at this time to help the planet ascend. I used to think that was the biggest...
I would go there. I truly believe this, Michael. I'm with you. We signed up for this.
And I didn't believe that in my bones 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when I first started to hear this. I would roll my eyes thinking, oh, that's really nice. But now I'm here and it's like, oh, wow. Like, Michael, I have personally had the experience all year long of being blown away at my personal life arc, landing as a professional spiritual teacher driven by astrology as a primary tool at a moment on the planet where astrology is rising up as a tool, at a moment when it's necessary to have some sort of a contextual tool that isn't religious. Like, I just feel like I was born for 2020. I feel like I've been preparing for this so that's where my hope comes, where I look at the change and transformation and I don't see, oh my God, watch out. I go, holy this is going to be amazing.
Woohoo. And I cannot think of another time in the written, and I'll use that term carefully because there's a lot of talk in deep science about whether this really is iteration 1.0 of humanity here on Earth. But in the written history, it seems like the amount of change, the acceleration, everything that's taking place on a global basis, even in a sense compared to a world war, and I'm not taking away from any of that, but we're talking about affecting everyone globally.
Everyone. Look what happened with the racial injustice movement that rose up here in the United States. The world dove. They dove on it because for my money, the world dove because the fundamental truths of healing this wound is undeniable at this moment. It has risen up in a way that can't be escaped.
So this is a time where we really, from what I'm hearing, we get to be hyper vigilant of what's going on the inside before we take any action on the outside.
One of the things that makes this weekend's new moon, solar eclipse, and solstice energy in Cancer, to me, so powerful, is that Cancer is the archetype that invented me, my care, my womb, my home, my privacy, my little sequestered place where I get to kiss my boo-boos and get ready to go out into the world again, right? Except that the new moon in Cancer is happening on the world axis point of 0 degrees of Cancer. That's the beginning of a season. 0 Aries, 0 Cancer, 0 Libra, and 0 Capricorn are when us and the Earth and the Sun are lined up in such a way that we have seasons, which is another reason why life and civilization exists on this planet, is because we have those seasons. So that 0 degrees Cancer as a world axis point means business. It means that if this point is stimulated, it is stimulated for the whole world, no one left out. But a new moon in Cancer says, take care of yourself only yourself. Put that oxygen mask on first. Except it's on a world axis point, which means you've got to add, from my perspective, you add the language of, yes, I will care for myself and do what needs to be done to heal myself personally so that I can use that world axis point and serve and help. I think the days of self-care versus care for all as being separate are kind of over.
I think if you follow any of the news, which I used to call negative, worthless stimulation, now I just call it, oh my God. But you realize there is no getting away from the usness. We are cells in a being. We are individual flowers on the bush, but we are part of that whole.
Yes.
How do we A, surf this energy, and B, are there punctuation marks where we do want to hide under the covers?
Well, I'll go first with the hide under the cover moment, just so that our time together doesn't leave out November.
Yes.
So here's where it's like I'll share this with you all, and then it's like it's up to you whether you take it as I am offering it or whether you hear it through the lens of, oh my God, I'm terrified. But November is the moment when Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter all come back together again.
Can I pause you for a moment?
Yes, you may.
If you were making a movie, could you make this stuff up?
No, I don't think you could. But the movie that's being made up is extraordinary when you think of the fact that our elections in the United States are in the first week of November.
That's what I'm saying.
So you don't need an astrologer to tell you that November's election is going to be the most contentious in the history of the United States. There's just no, like, that's obvious. It also should be obvious that in the same way that the racial justice movement that rose up in the United States was sort of responded to by the world, the United States does have a role in the world stage that does make it prominent, primary. For good or for ill. I think that's part of the problem in the world, is that the United States holds a false seat at the table. And that's part of what's changing here, is that even the diminishment of our reputation in the world is not really a problem for me, because it's part of what's happening, is that we're being sort of right-sized. I think the point I'm trying to make about bringing November into this conversation now is, though some people might hear that and say, I'm afraid, I'm offering it in the spirit of don't be. Sign up for the change and transformation that you already signed up for. Like, we already agreed to this.
Yes.
And so it's part of our karmic responsibility to hold space so that the change can happen in the most effective and powerful way, and that we make it, that we survive it. So again, how afraid you as an individual, I mean, I'm pointing to you, I don't mean you, Michael, but listening, That's up to you. It's like it is possible to live in the curiosity of what's going to happen. It is possible to live in the welcoming of November. I get to feel that way because I use archetypal thinking to run my life. Right. So I trust in change transformation, even though it's scary.
So other than November, and I'm thinking specifically September through November seems to me to be the
that's when Mars will be retrograde. Right. And so that's a harder retrograde consciousness to teach.
Yeah.
Like, very easy to understand Venus going retrograde, and it helps us with our intimacy, our giving and receiving of love, and how we respond to our feelings as intelligence. It's very easy to get. Mercury's retrograde allows us to rewire thought patterns. Mars's retrograde is about how we're embodying our lives. And a lot of people don't know what that word means, right? So for me, embody means how you choose to live. What are the values that you walk your life with? You know, what belief systems guide you? If Mars is how we act and choose, then a Mars retrograde is helping us change and alter how we act and choose. And since anger and fear causes people to choose through the lens of war, what we're hoping for is that enough people on the planet have a kind of dropping into a more holistic experience of change and transformation, so that when we get into September, there are enough people on the planet holding space for the idea that we're changing how we walk our talk, so that we can emerge out of that retrograde less warring, less aggressive and more assertive, less likely to act out of rage and reactivity, and more likely to respond. All we need is enough, Michael. We don't need everybody to do this. That would be the movie version of it.
Well, that's why you're doing your event on Thursday nights. That's why we bring live
That's why you do your
each
coaching.
week as
That's
well.
why I see So your first part of your question is like, well, how do we ride the wave? And so the answer to that is this. This is the answer to that. We do our things. We meditate. We pray. We do our personal work. We tune into the teachers that inspire us. We have difficult conversations to help change the thought process of our immediate community. There are all sorts of things we do to honor the change and transformation that's going on. And the best way to navigate it so that we don't get overwhelmed about November is we do it one day at a time.
Thank you. And I want to dive into the end of the year real briefly here in a moment. But before we do that, everything you're describing to me sounds like a birthing or a rebirth process. And I think of Pele and burning down and Pele, the goddess of fire, on the volcano on Hawaii, of a burning down of the earth to create something new. We're not just talking about destruction, but when you're describing everything, not only do I hear a birthing anew of America, a birthing anew of the order of the planet, and I'm not talking new world order here, a birthing anew of how we tread, embody, and exist through this world. And then the last term that comes to me is natural childbirth.
Ow. Ow, right. It is natural childbirth. We have to go through the growing pains.
And we have to do it in a way that is more in harmony, is more in convergence, is more in coherence with each other and with ourselves than the previous ways that we have done things.
I think one of the challenges there is that the world needs activists and activation right now, right? But not everybody's an activist, right? The world needs people standing up and saying, it's not enough. It's not enough. And yet, as a spiritual teacher, I crave people saying, oh my God, look at the change. Look at the change. Let's celebrate the win.
Yeah.
So I'm not even really sure what I'm speaking into here, Michael, but there are two things that have to happen. We do need the voices to rise up and say, not enough, more, this is bad, more activism. But as a spiritual teacher, not an activist, I'm speaking into the part of the experience that happens inside your body, not activating outside in your social experience, but inside your body to heal the rage and reactivities that keep you from seeing the world through a loving lens.
I keep coming back to a situation I read about, and who knows what's the real story behind the story. But as they put up the double layer, triple layer, quadruple layer fences around, it sounds like a whopper, around the White House a few weeks ago, there are people there at night. Most of the people have cleared out. This is after the tear gas, days later. And somebody picks up a bottle or bottles and starts throwing it at the police on the other side. The police start to approach, and a woman yells out as the story goes, "Stop. That's not why we're here." And she was talking to people on her side of the fence. And that the term that comes to mind is heart heart-centered activism. She went back to the heart. If we're going
That's
to
right.
evolve from this, it's got to be a different way.
Who cares if the story is true, sweetheart? It is that's a perfect example that there is a place where the heart and activism meet. And yes, I think we would all benefit from more of that.
Thank you. So, few last things, then we'll share where people get to go. Maybe we'll do a little meditation or something at the end here. Is there anything going on end of the year, December 21st, anywhere around that time period where we have to be aware of?
December has a total solar eclipse on December 14th, and that's intense. But it is the month itself is so much gentler.
Cool. So we can breathe easy once we get through November.
If we get through like November, December winds up being kind of a somewhat easier experience because the only thing we were really contending with is an eclipse. I will tell you this though. There's a certain way, and this is going to freak a lot of people out. I shouldn't say this, but I have to say it. There's a certain way as a visionary, as an astrologer, I haven't looked past November, December. Like I haven't looked. Now, I typically don't anyway. That's not unusual. Like that's my job really isn't to look before it's time for me to be looking. And
right.
It's time for me to be looking at the end of the year only to prepare how I'm going to teach about the year to come. So it's not unusual that I haven't actually done that work. What's unusual is in my psyche and my psyche as an astrologer, I do know that there's so much changing this year that there are going to be ways from 2021 till my last breath that I think I might have to do astrology a little differently. Meaning transits that I might read about and think about that haven't arrived yet, that come in 2021 and 2022 and 2023, will have to be interpreted on top of the changing world. Like when I was reading people in late March and April, it was very confusing as an astrologer how to read their life experience and know that they were also in a shelter-in-place lockdown. Because that was global. Everybody was experiencing that. And then it was impossible for me to understand how to read the individual transits when part of what I know everyone was experiencing was this global experience. So I hope this is clear. It's like I don't know what the future brings because I don't know how to think about it until we actually kind of get there.
I teach a process called automatic writing. Another shameless plug, automaticwriting.com, where it's channeled writing. And everything I'm getting in my channeled writing is saying it hasn't unfolded yet. So we can't give you an answer past a certain point because there's so many possibilities of what could come.
Yeah, it's like when people say to me, who do I think is going to win the presidency? It's like, how on earth would you think I would even know that? It's not knowable. And even the people who are looking and saying, oh, this is going to happen or that's going to happen, they're not speaking from politics or statistics or objective view. They're speaking from their desire.
My best way that I put it, Michael, with all of my clients right now, as I say, my crystal ball is broken.
Yeah. Yeah.
So on that note, is there any one thing that we haven't really covered for this year that we need to be thinking about?
God, wouldn't it have been fun if I had had some really brilliant, yes, let me leave you with this. And I don't. What I'll just say is the change is utter and it's still unfolding. And I think if I want to say anything, it's like, we got this. We got this. Resiliency is one of the most profound human traits. It's available in every single one of us. And we don't even know how resilient we are because we haven't even been tested. But we can survive anything. And I believe that with every beat of my heart.
Thank you, Michael. Would you mind leading us in any sort of a guided, beautiful anything at this point?
Sure, let's do a real quick little chakra meditation in the seven chakra meditation.
Fantastic.
And so I invite anyone listening who is participating in this experience of turning within to just follow my words as if I am speaking for each one of us, connecting to this energetic experience. I'm going to ask us to breathe in light through the center of our hearts and allow that light to expand into a beautiful ball of light that encompasses our heart chakra within, through, and around our body. And now we breathe in light through the center of our hearts and allow that light to expand into a beautiful ball of light that encompasses our throat chakra and our belly chakra, where our voice and our instincts get merged into the unified field that we are creating. And breathing in light through the center of our heart, we allow that light to expand into a beautiful ball of light that expands to our forehead and to our genitals, where we connect in with our third eye and our guidance of intuition and our capacity for great change and transformation, our ability to create, our ability to transform through anything. We allow these energies to merge in with the unified field that we are creating. And we breathe in light through the center of our hearts and allow that light to expand into a beautiful ball of light that goes up to the top of our heads and down to the bottom of our spine. And we bring our crown chakra into our consciousness, where we receive wisdom from the Father God. And we bring our root chakra consciousness into our experience by creating a sense of safety, security, all needs met, by grounding into the great Mother that is the Mother Goddess of the Father God equation. And we are the very center of that incredible way that the beaming light of the sun and the rich, moist fertility of the earth come together in this perfect explosion of consciousness that is us. We are the 6 billion gathered as spirit expressing through us and as us. And in this unified human collective being expression, I declare that all is well, all is well, all is better than well. And so it is. Amen.
Woohoo! Woo! Thank you, Michael. This has been buckle your seatbelts, hold on, dive deep, everyone. What else can I say?
Beautiful.
This has been phenomenal. Thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure always, Michael. I so enjoy speaking with you.
Where can people go to find out more, to find your daily Astro alerts? And what I loved about this the most is, while it was actually challenging, I must say it was challenging for me, I was learning as I was going through this. So I see this as a teaching tool as well as a guide.
I appreciate you actually saying that, because it is true that my daily Astro alerts, which is an investment, it's not free, it's something you have to pay for, it's $10 a month or $100 for the year, very comprehensive language that is overwhelming to some people when they start reading it. Every once in a while, people will cancel. They're like, it's just too much to take in. But I hear this all the time. They say, I stuck with it and I learned. And I write as a teacher, which means I repeat principles and concepts. I speak and write in instructional language. And so yes, I'm describing the day's energies, and that's helpful. But I'm also going to teach you how to become a bit of an astrologist, as you know, because you've been working with them. So that, my daily Astro alerts is an email that comes to your email box about the next day's astrology. But I also, on Instagram, I'm doing this Red Robe Astrology for the last year and a half, where every day I do a 59-second video about the day's astrology, and that's absolutely free. So that's a great place to connect in with me on a regular basis with no no investment. And that's Dr. Lennox Dreams on Instagram, DrLennox Dreams, Dr. Lennox Dreams. And I'm also on Facebook as Dr. Michael Lennox.
For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get your daily Astro alert, and begin holding on and diving deep during this astrological extravaganza today. and shine bright. Woohoo! If you're watching this, then you are a light worker. You're a light warrior, and I want to help. We offer everything from boot camps, mini masterclasses, full-on masterminds, and private one-on-one coaching with me. To find out more about our upcoming courses, simply visit InspireNationUniversity.com or click on the links below. And to find out more about coaching, simply visit InspireNationShow.com/coaching. We also have weekly YouTube live events with me where you can ask me your questions live and YouTube premieres featuring me and our guests. Simply subscribe below and click on the bell icon to be notified of upcoming shows. I just had the most mind-blowing prognostication of an interview with Dr. Michael Lennox on what in the world is going on with the world, astrologically speaking. To check out more incredible interviews, click here, subscribe below, click on that bell icon to be notified of upcoming shows, YouTube premieres, and live events every Sunday with me. Check out our boot camps by clicking on the link below. You can find out about our master classes as well. You'll also find a link to find out about coaching one-on-one with me. Big thumbs up if you like this. Leave your comments below. Love you guys so much. Shine bright. Woohoo! Love you guys.